On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Right. There's some cool things that we're doing for clients who are entrepreneurs who are growing their businesses now, accruing significant wealth, but they're just focused on growing the wealth. I get it. But let's do something now to protect it for future generations. And it's asset protected. It's protected from creditors. It's a beautiful thing. The thing that I see about law firms generally is that they're glorified silos of small businesses where each partner has their own team and their own group of clients. Even a law firm needs a vision, and you got to have values to back it up. Good habits lead to good results.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolf, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming to you today with, some people might consider this a boring business, but I cannot tell you how juiced up, I know, how juiced up this topic gets me. But Wayne Zell is on the King stage today. My brother Wayne, how are you?
Thank you, Chaz, for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, tell us what kind of business that you have, because I've already introduced you as a boring business, but tell us what it is, because we got to get into it, because I'm jacked.
I got two businesses. One is a law firm. That's boring, but it's not really boring because it's really exciting, some of the things we do for our clients.
Yeah.
And then I also have a business that is an exit planning business. The law firm is called Zell Law, zelllaw.com with 3 L's in the middle. And Aspire to Exit is our new exit planning business, which spun out from the creation of my book, Your Multimillion-Dollar Exit. So I'm real excited about that as well.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to figure out what's in the book here and tell us where we can get it here shortly. But the boring piece about what you do that's so exciting to me is that I am so excited about my legacy. And not like Chaz Wolf, like my name. Like I couldn't care less about that. I'll be forgotten here soon. But from a perspective of what I can pass on, knowledge and wealth, I'm just so excited about what my children, my grandchildren, and the future generations can obtain and then keep flowing knowledge and wealth. And so you help people do this. And so I want to pull out all the nuggets that you've got. And then on top of that, maybe we can point people in the right direction on how maybe they can work with you if that makes sense for them. But before we do the semantic piece, tell me, you've been doing this for a long time. Why are you still doing it? Why does it get you fired up? Because you said it's boring, but it's not. But what's the deeper part in there for Wayne?
As an estate planner, we do a lot of psychology. So we're representing people and talking to them about their innermost fears and their greatest desires in terms of how they want to pass on their legacy to their kids, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing this long enough, so I've seen pretty much everything under the sun, and started back in 1980 working in the area of estate planning, but I also do business planning. And the beauty of this is, I'll give you a quick story. Around 2002, I learned that I had prostate cancer at the age of 43. I was a young guy and had 4 kids. My wife was at home at that time with the kids. We had a mortgage. And I was thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? When you go through something like that, you think, what are you going to do? Are you going to be just billing hours as an attorney? Is that all you care about, working for a big law firm? And I was with a big law firm. And I really sat down and I thought, what do I get the most pleasure out of? And the most pleasure I get is helping people. So I created this tagline for the business that we still use today. It's helping clients realize their personal dreams of wealth and freedom. And wealth and freedom mean lots of different things to a lot of different people.
That's right.
But it was that moment, it was revelatory. It was that moment that I sort of went, this is why I do what I do. I do it to help people. I'm always giving myself and giving back. We give back to the community. We give back to our clients. It's about helping people. And that juices me up every day, even at my age today. I love doing what I do because I get to help people who want to be helped, who need help, who need to be helped.
Yeah.
And that's really the origin of it, I think, today.
Well, I want to toot your horn for just a half second here. We just met, but what I've already learned about you, even in our little few minutes here before we hit the record button, is that everything that you get to help other people do, you're super disciplined and focused doing it yourself. Because almost one of the first things that you said out of your mouth was that I'm excited about what I'm doing with my wife right now, as far as us planning out the rest of our existence, our years together, and what that looks like. And so out of the heart, the abundance flows. Or it's like, like what you're doing for yourself, what you're doing for you and your wife, planning the estate, the not so much the exit per se, but like all the things, probably an exit. We are going to exit, right?
We all have to exit at some time, either
That's right.
expectedly or unexpectedly. So
That's right.
the best decision I ever made in my whole career of 43 years of doing this was to bring my wife on board as our chief operating officer. But more importantly, she's loving and handling a lot of the marketing of what we do. And what we do is educational marketing. We're teaching people constantly about ways that they can preserve their wealth, save money, avoid taxes, and protect their assets from creditors. And so all of a sudden in the last year or so, since she's been focused on that with our marketing director, things have sort of started to spiral upward and skyrocket. And the book has obviously helped that. And it's just giving me a lot of energy to do what I do. So best decision, bringing in Laurie into the business to help me do what I do and focus on what I do so she can help me do what I do better.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome.
There's a lot of practicality to that. Wife or no wife in that position being filled is a huge piece to building a great business. And so maybe we'll get into that. I want to know from, kind of going back to the, tax planning, you're like talking about, setting things up to where things really can not only operate well, but then you can protect it. What do you feel like, is, I don't know, like I want to start baseline, right? Someone is listening right now who maybe they just started their business. They're in year one. We've got people that listen that do hundreds of millions. And so we're going to get to that here in a second. But for the guy or gal listening right now, that's super baseline and they just started the LLC, they're in their first year, they're under 500,000. What should they be thinking from a wealth freedom perspective, like business and estate and, or maybe even exit?
Good question. I mean, part of all of this relates to financial planning as well as estate planning, right? So I'm not a financial planner, although I teach one of the financial planning courses at a local university at George Mason University. The way that I envision this is that you've got to have a financial plan for yourself, for your family. If you have employees, you've got to plan for their well-being as well. And if you really care about your business, you're going to care about your employees. If you care about your employees, you have to set up a structure so that they can start saving money for their future as well. So it's planning for the exit. You always have to start at the beginning to plan for the exit. Stephen Covey said it in his book, 7 Ways. You've got to have a plan in place. Now, that may mean setting aside $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month into savings so that if something does happen to you, you can take care of yourself in the short run.
Right.
Then it's also thinking that, well, I need insurance. I need life insurance. I may need disability insurance to protect myself. Again, I don't sell these products for clients. I have others that I bring in and refer to them to do that. Sure. But it's really important to think about this as a risk management exercise. So you're managing against the risk of some kind of early demise, early disability, and then planning for the future. What do I want out of this business that I'm building in the future? And it starts with structuring the business correctly from the very get-go. It's easy to set up an LLC. You can do that in any state, online, in a second.
Yep.
That's not the issue. It's how do I set this up for tax purposes?
Yeah.
How do I set this up to take care of my employees and myself and my family?
Yeah.
And how do I incentivize people to stay with me as I grow this down the line? Because it may not just be me, it may be others that are going to be absolutely critical to the success and ultimate exit of this business. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And it's not just tax planning, it's not just estate planning, it's planning the business correctly too, so that when you do have the ultimate exit, it's done in a way that you've maximized the value of what you've been trying to build. So along the way, there are some value drivers that you could enhance that you may not be aware of or not focused on, that an exit planner like me that could come in and basically show you what the value drivers are in your business, or take what you've told me about the value of your business, articulate it in current terms. What is the value of the business today? How do we measure it? That's part of the book. And then how do we grow that value to the point where you can exit significantly and substantially and successfully, or transition it to your family, transition it to your key employees. Whatever the exit strategy is, you should have one.
Yeah.
And you should be thinking about it in the back of your mind from the very beginning.
How does one do that? I mean, I love this exercise of starting with the end in mind and working backwards, this reverse engineer effect, but it's also a skill set. It's like, this is real. Like, you have to be able to go there and then work backwards. And so for some, that's not as natural for them. And it doesn't mean that they're any less intelligent. It just means that their brain works different. And so what's the easiest way to sit for a second, think about the end in mind, and then work backwards, like what you're talking about? For the guy or gal listening right now that's still kind of in the phase of like, oh, I'm just getting this thing, I don't even know what it's going to be. How do I even know? You know what I mean?
You know, I'll give you another quick story. My son-in-law is starting up a business, and he's got a vision. It's going to happen. You can tell that he's going to be successful. So I'm guiding him along on that journey. It's really exciting for me because I'm watching him, you know, deal with other advisors, get advice from different people, and start to grow what he's got the vision to grow.
Yeah.
But I'm also helping him in the short run to focus on the things that he may not have thought about, because he's focusing on growing this business to make it a multi-million-dollar business and sell it. You also have to focus on your family. You got to make sure that you've got protection today.
Yeah.
So part of it is involving a financial planner or some type of financial plan, so that if something happens to you now, you've got a flow of assets and income that can take care of your family if you can't do it yourself. So there's the unexpected, and then how do I grow this successfully over time? What are the components that I need to grow this business successfully? And how do I exit at the maximum value if I want to exit? Or how do I make this into a legacy business where I could generate cash flow for my family, even into retirement and beyond?
Yeah.
So if something happens to me, the family still owns there's a lot of family-owned businesses in the country that do survive. Most don't. From one generation to the next, the statistic is 75% will fail after the first generation. After the second generation, another 50%. So you're down to like 10 to 12%. And it just goes on from there. So how do you plan so that it can succeed? And, you know, instead of working in the business all the time, you should be setting aside time periodically with your advisor to work on the business. And part of that advisory team is a financial planner, maybe your CPA that is going to help you with the income tax planning that you need to have on an annual basis, and how do I minimize those taxes legally and effectively going forward. You need an estate planner involved. You need a business planner involved, or a business exit planner involved, especially if you are starting to focus on the exit. But you should be focused on the exit from the beginning, and, you know, talking to other people that might be able to help you in your business, HR executives, recruiters, valuation people, financial people that have expertise in growing, building, and selling businesses. Your banker, you got to have a relationship with them. You should be building relationships with all these different disciplines so that you have a team, a rock star team available to you to help you sell or transition the business in the way that you want to later on.
Yeah, I think you built up this, you know, awesome monstrosity of information that you just gave to us as far as like the path, which I love. But you started with your son-in-law saying he had a vision. So I want you to talk about that just for a half second, because you're right. That is the first thing. And we're absolutely in agreement on that. The rest of it, the certainty of planning for the future, right? You said like, he knows it's going to be multi-millions. He knows he's going to exit. He's certain. You can tell even just in hearing you talk about him that he's certain because he's rubbed up. But having the vision and being certain, or having a burning desire, as Think and Grow Rich talks about, is kind of like that first, like, I got to be here. So there's people listening right now that are just like, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this business in the next 12 months, 36 months. I don't know. I'm just doing it to make money. Would you encourage them to do something?
There's a great book that was written by Gino Wickman, Traction. You
Mm-hmm.
probably have talked about it on your show. I love the book.
Oh yeah.
We use EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, here. And, I've worked in, gosh, almost a dozen different firms over my career, moving around, looking for the right place. And what I realized was the best place was here with me, because I had a vision of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I have a vision, and I'm executing on it finally. And the vision is to grow something that is going to be there for our clients after I'm gone, so that there are like-minded individuals servicing those clients, taking care of them, making sure their needs are being met, their legacies are being passed on. So you got to have a vision, and the vision sort of dovetails with having an exit plan.
Right.
You got to have a vision to have an exit plan. And then you have to have values that you're inculcating into your business. Every business needs that. The thing that I see about law firms generally is that they're glorified silos of small businesses where each partner has their own team and their own group of clients. And in late years, the big firms just basically move one group of lawyers to another firm, back to another. There's a lot of lack of vision as to where these firms are going. Well,
Sure. Yeah.
even a law firm needs a vision. Our exit planning firm has a vision, and you got to have values to back it up. And then from the values and the vision flow your goals, your business goals. Do I want to sell this business in 10 years? If I do, what do I need to get there, and at what value? And then backing it up into a strategy that is annual, maybe over 3 years, and then quarterly, and then monthly, and weekly, and daily. What are the things that I need to do on an ongoing basis to build the value that I want at the end of that 10-year period?
Yeah.
That, I thought it was the best articulation of that strategy was in the Traction book, but I've seen it in a lot of different books.
Oh yeah.
Good to Great. There's a lot of great books out there.
Yeah.
But you've got to incorporate that into your daily living and how you approach every day. Making your bed is one of the first things you should be doing every day. Good habits lead to good results.
That's right. You just, spun off on exactly where I was going to bring you back to, because all of the, planning, I mean, I love the language. Like, I'm all in. I would plan all day long every day if I could, because I love being in that space. It's so creative and so energizing for me. But at the same time, so we use a company called Working Genius as well. And so in that, I'm, high, ideation skill set where there's invention, but then I'm all the way down to the bottom tenacity as well. It's like, no, like, let's plan, but then like time to go. Let's get it done. Let's like achieve things. And so everything that you just said is like, hey, we can talk about it. And that's cool. And that feels good. But then like, what are we doing today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this quarter, this year? Because that's actually how then things get done, is the discipline that you mentioned just 5 or 10 minutes ago. You're like, it really comes down to the discipline of exit planning, right? Or estate planning.
Well, it's funny. When I was early in college, I was driving home with my dad from school, and he asked me what I was going to major in. And I said, well, I'm thinking music and drama, because I was, I used to do shows and sing a lot and wrote a lot of music, and I was that was my passion, right?
Yeah.
Still is my passion. And he was quiet for a second, and he said, well, so how are you going to pay for school? I said, what do you mean? How am I going to pay for school?
Good question, Dad.
How are you going to pay for school? Why do you ask that? He said, because I'm not going to be able to subsidize you to go into a profession where, maybe 1% of the people succeed. And it's usually a matter of lucky breaks, because there are a lot of talented people out there. And I'm not saying you're not talented. You're a talented guy. But there's no way that I'm going to be comfortable with you doing that. I said, well, what am I going to do? He says, you're going to enroll in the Commerce School at the University of Virginia, and you're going to major in business. I was like, man, I'm a right-brained person. I'm creative. I'm the visionary. I think out of the box. And he wants me to study accounting? Are you serious? And so initially, very tough.
Yeah.
Same thing happened after I got out of school. I majored in accounting, did very well. But it was a struggle at first, because I had to take the right brain and calm it down
Yeah.
and start focusing on the left brain where it's details, analytics.
Yeah.
I went to law school after I worked as a CPA, tax lawyer, tax accountant for a couple of years because I felt like I needed some better skills in analyzing and writing. I got to law school and I was like, oh man, these are all English and history majors and they all know how to write. I didn't really know how to write except creatively, creative poetry, music, things like that. I learned how to write, learned how to write well. And I ended up going from not doing so well in my first year in law school to getting an award in my last year in law school for success. And again, it was shifting the right brain preference to the left brain. And to this day, I have to go back and forth from the creativity, providing creative solutions, creative ways to solve problems for clients, to getting into the details to the nth degree to make sure that the clients are absolutely protected in what we're saying in these documents that we create for them. It may sound like legalese to you, but it is really important stuff. And so you have to take that importance to the nth degree when you're doing what we do, at least on the legal side. And the same thing for anything else that you do in life. You got to be able to focus on the details to some degree. Hopefully you've got people that you can delegate to do that even better than you do. And then you want to find people that are better than you to succeed to you so that you can feel comfortable that your clients are being taken care of, that everybody's being handled with due care. Absolutely.
The last question I want to ask you here, kind of in this thinking ahead, maybe I'm still a new business owner, is, well, you just gave a really, really keen picture in my eye of the importance of this language. And there's a lot of younger business owners, not age-wise, but tenure-wise. I remember being, 10, 12 years ago, starting businesses and going like, okay, fine. Like just the documents, like just the legal stuff, But some of those things have come to pass already where like that document, I needed to use it. And for what it was designed for. It wasn't just like, oh, this is nice, let's refresh. Like it was like, no, like I'm in a situation and I need to reference the actual document. And this is now going to be the way that either things are handled, whether it be in court or not, or whatever. And so the weight of what you just said of these things actually matter. How does that person, again, thinking that they haven't really experienced anything probably too crazy yet, too heavy, too negative, how does that person think ahead? You've already got to give us that, but with the weight of no, like the language matters, it all matters, because there's going to be a time where you go to court, someone sues you, like something happens, like where the importance of it actually matters.
That's a good question. My philosophy on representing clients as a lawyer and also as an exit planner is first, keep people out of court. Figure out the best way to keep everybody out of court. Whether it's in an estate planning document or whether it's in a contract that we're drafting for a business. How do we protect the client and keep them protected in the event of a dispute? And if there is a dispute, and invariably there will be, how do we handle that dispute? How do we manage the dispute in a way that's in the best interest of the client? And so every client's different, and some people are willing to fight it out in court, and they're willing to be ambiguous in their contracts and nebulous in terms of the language, and they instruct us to do that. They don't want a 15-page contract. They want a 2-page contract. Shorten it. Make it 2 pages. And I say, we can't. Just be aware of the risks of doing that. So it's a risk allocation, risk analysis that everybody's got to go through. And what's the most important thing? When you're starting up your business, getting contracts, getting business in the door, selling product, however you have to do it. Sometimes you're going to have to sign the vendor's contract that does things that you didn't anticipate when you signed it. Like, did you give away the intellectual property that you created in your business? Oh my goodness. I have a famous celebrity chef that is a client who signed a contract early on to start up a restaurant. And in that celebrity chef contract, he gave away the intellectual property to all his recipes and all his, intellectual property going forward. We contacted, the other party and said, we're not going to honor that, first of all, but secondly, let's work out a reasonable compromise here in terms of what was originally intended, because this guy was just getting into business and he just signed anything he could because he wanted to get into business right away.
Right.
You don't need to do that. You need to spend a little bit of money, be penny wise and pound foolish is what happens if you shortcut everything. You
That's right.
pull documents off the internet. You have LegalZoom draft the documents for you, or you have somebody that's inexperienced do something for a very low cost because they quoted you a fee that's a fraction of what somebody else would charge. You get what you pay for in this world. And so, the question is, what can you afford within your budget, and how do you protect yourself to the maximum extent? And so I always say and we represent a lot of startups. I've represented thousands of startups over my career. Just be careful when you're starting up the business. If you're doing it with a partner, be careful that you've sort of anticipated what might go wrong down the road. Let's not talk about it too much, but let's plan for that in our original documentation.
Yeah.
And if a lot of my clients will say, I trust him, he's my best friend, I'm not worried about it. Okay, fine. You've been warned. The things happen between friends as well as people who don't know each other that well when you're combining talents and businesses.
Yeah.
What if? I know the what ifs. That's what you want, is somebody who can ask what if, to make sure that you're thinking through the issue all the way through before you sort of pull the trigger and sign the contract and sign the agreement and do whatever it is that you've got to do to get this business up and operating as fast as possible.
Hey, Kings and Queens, Chaz Wolf. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Yeah. So I'm hearing poise in your answer. I'm hearing like just an understanding of timeline, and that yes, you want to hurry up and get it done, but there might be some prudence necessary to just make sure things are good. You don't need to be, go spend a ton, but you need to be aware of that. There are certain things you might just want to make sure that are right. Now, let's fast forward to some of the listeners that, they're doing millions, maybe even hundreds of millions. Give us, because I know you got clients that are doing millions, hundreds of millions, billions, the whole deal. So give us something that they've either, I'm going to go kind of far-fetched here, like something they've never heard before, but something that should be in their estate plan that probably isn't. What's that one juicy piece that's missing?
Here's a good one. It's one that's used by a lot of high-level estate planners, and one that I've used and we're using currently. Let's say you're starting up a fund, an investment fund, a hedge fund, and you're doing it legally, and you've got a great advisor who's helping you build this fund, and you're taking in outside money, and the thing is growing. I was, talking to a young guy just a few minutes ago. I think I mentioned that he wants to build a hedge fund. Well, how do we plan for the ultimate success of that,
right,
and minimize the impact on his family if something happens to him or he just passes away at the normal time?
Right.
If this thing grows to $250 million and we haven't done any estate planning to that point,
right,
the family is going to suffer immeasurably, because on death, from a federal perspective, at that level, you're paying a tax at death of 40%. So $100 million of wealth will go immediately out the door to the Internal Revenue Service.
Wow.
And, as much as I like our government and I feel that there's a reason for having taxes,
that's right,
it bothers me when we have to pay that much in taxes to the IRS.
Yeah.
So we come up with structures. One structure that we use is something known as a derivative strategy. It sounds really complicated. It is kind of complicated, but it's basically, you could sell an option to a trust that you've created for your family that might last for generations, known as a generation skipping transfer tax exempt trust, also known as a dynasty trust.
Yeah.
Lots of different names for that, depending on how we structure the trust. But you could sell an option to transfer the upside in your business or your investment to the trust. And it costs a fraction of what the actual interest would be worth because it's simply an option, if you know how options work in the real market. And so you're selling it, and the trust has to have enough funding to pay for the option. And sometimes it'll pay a little bit in cash, but mostly give back a note, a promissory note. And this trust might be treated as your trust for income tax purposes, but your family's trust for estate tax purposes. So it's out of your estate. So you're transferring upside into the trust, and you are responsible for paying the taxes on the future wealth accretion. And you're thinking, why would I do that? Because if your wealth is that high, you can burn down the size of your estate in a tax burn. You're paying the income tax for the trust.
Yeah.
And all the assets inside the trust, including the upside of that option or whatever structure we used, is growing estate and gift tax free outside of your estate at a rate of 40% per generation.
Yeah.
So each generation that you're skipping, you're saving 40%. And so we've done this for hundreds of clients over the years. And we've got a lot of clients in tow that we're trying to bring in, but they're like, I'm just focused on growing my business. I want to hit $1 billion. Okay, fine. Let's get something out before it goes up to 250 million or even 100 or even 30 million. Let's move something out today into trust for your spouse and your kids that's still outside of both of your estates when you die and may skip generations for generation to generation.
Yeah.
So the option derivative strategy is one that we've used. Another is transferring an asset by gift using the high exemptions today that everybody has. The exemption from the federal estate tax this year is $12,920,000, and it's going to go up to $13.66 million next year. It drops by half at the end of 2025 due to the sunsetting of all the Trump changes that were made in 2018. So we can use $7 or $8 million of exemption that will never be brought back into your estate, even if it drops back down. So there's some cool things that we're doing for clients who are entrepreneurs who are growing their businesses now, accruing significant wealth, but they're just focused on growing the wealth. I get it, but let's do something now to protect it for future generations. And it's asset protected. It's protected from creditors. It's a beautiful thing. And that's just one of the techniques.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the double whammy there. I want to encourage that, even the smaller guys, the $1 million or maybe even smaller. I mean, I was in my 20s when I set up my trust. And I just feel like if you start with the end in mind, what is it going to look like? Now, I think that there's a lot of work that I need to do in order to make it what it needs to be. But there's steps along the way is what I'm trying to encourage maybe the younger tenure guys. And for the guys that are a little older, literally, like age-wise and or just tenure-wise, they're doing just more in business. They've been in business for a while. It's like the opposite. It's like you ran out of time, bro. Like you got to hurry up quick. Reach out to my man here because something could happen and then just gobs and gobs of wealth doesn't transfer to future generations for you. And I know some people aren't motivated by that. But here's what I have found is that everybody is motivated to an exponential result. Some people it's for their community. Some people it's for, like I had a guy on the podcast yesterday. We were talking about he doesn't have any kids of his own, but he wants to send 1 million kids to study abroad. And he's connected with this program, and that's like his major aim in life. Every one of us is motivated and driven by some sort of exponential, like it's going to last beyond me. Otherwise, I don't know what you're doing, but like think outside yourself for a half second. But inside of that, for me, it's legacy. Like my kids, my grandkids, and maybe future generations after that. The Bible says for me, like I need to take care of my kids, my grandkids. So I'm like hyper focused on it. And everything that you're talking about for me is like, yes, let's talk about it because this is how we do it, right? Like this is the practicality of it.
Well, you got it. I mean, and I have a similar vision too. My goal is to help 50,000 families over my career. I'm well on my way to that goal, but 50,000 is a lot of people, but it's within reach. And I've got another maybe 10 years left in me and I can do it. So
Never know. I've had some folks on the pod here that talk about living to 100, 108.
oh yeah.
With that type of runway, you got all kinds of time left. So, okay, let's talk about some practicals for you. I'm going to come out of the estate planning world for a second, but still use those examples if it's necessary. But I want to know of just a really solid, good decision that you've made in your own business that's led to a lot of the success that you personally have.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned my wife. Bringing her in was the best
Yeah.
decision I've ever made. I had always been doing this on my own. I had staff. I had, worked with other lawyers, other people, but she knows me better than anyone. And she's a CPA also, and also she's certified in HR. She's got her SHRM certification. She's just absolutely brilliant. So bringing her in was the best decision I ever made, only because she's great with people. And, she's not overly intense like I am at times. And she's a great balance for what we're trying to do. But she's also bringing a lot of creativity, and she's an implementer, whereas I'm the visionary. I'm always looking ahead, looking at new ways of trying to do things more efficiently, more effectively, not just in delivering services to our clients, but for ourselves. And she's the one that said, okay, I can do that. And she figures out the way to do it. And it's like, whoa, not everybody can do that. In fact, very few people can do that and understand how to implement it. So as a law firm, I think we're way ahead of the pack in terms of implementing and using technology, not only to market our services and educate our clients and bring better service to the clients, but just in delivering everything that we promise on a more than timely basis.
The last piece there that you said, I gotta sit on that for a second, because the result is we provide 10, 100x the value to our clients. You were doing a good job before. Obviously, you had a good business, but that was the accelerator, the fuel already on just this lit fire that made the explosion happen. And I liked how you said that the explosion wasn't necessarily more money in your account, although I'm sure that's been the case. The explosion for you was, we get to do what we do better, which then provides the better value. And of course, that's going to circle back to the bank account every single time.
I guess the other best decision is involving all of the employees, all the staff in all the decisions. So because we use EOS and we use, a sort of a collaborative model, we try to have a flat organizational structure. We get great ideas from everyone. And because they're in the trenches doing the stuff, and they say, well, why don't we do it this way? It's like, you're right. Why don't we? And so I think that a collaborative environment where everybody, it's also involving transparency. And one of my clients wrote a book called Transparency. He's also a longevity guy, like you were talking about. But I think the idea of transparency is underemphasized. It needs to be emphasized more and more. And there's now a Corporate Transparency Act that was enacted by Congress, which infiltrates estate planning, business planning, everything we do with all of our clients. It's not only to let people know, how much we're making and how much revenue and how many clients we're bringing in, but how we do it. And so we're very transparent with our clients too on pricing everything. So I think it's really, in collaborative transparency, all of those things are real important to the business.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of scarcity around transparency, because if I'm open, right, then what are people going to think of me? Maybe they don't want to do business with me. They don't want to work for me. Whatever the situation is. But actually, oftentimes, what happens is what you're saying is that it brings people closer together. There's more glue there because you've been real. Have you experienced that?
I do. It's interesting because everybody's different in terms of their personalities and their goals and their preferences. We have kids here that are, I call them kids, but they're adults that are 23 on up, and I think they're extremely valuable to what we do. We learn from them every day on how to deal with people, how to approach people in today's environment. Yes, particularly the younger ones. The older ones, I'm a little more used to that. And there's the old school way of thinking, right? And the old school way of handling clients, but there's a younger way of doing things too. And we're learning a tremendous amount. I mean, we use texting in the business, which before was almost ethically impermissible in law firms. You couldn't even advertise as a lawyer before. It's the whole world has changed.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of being transparent and giving them as much information as they want to help them understand why we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes we make mistakes. So
that's the way it goes. We're humans. What about a bad decision? Let's flip the coin. Let's talk about something that you've done where you're just like, I wouldn't do that again, but maybe you're thankful for it.
Bad decision. There's
does an extreme planner like you make bad decisions?
Well, I wasn't really an extreme planner until more recently, probably the last 15 years, that I really started becoming a better planner. Because lawyers don't plan; they just do, right?
They just do.
Yeah, and so
billable hours, like you said.
Yeah. So where's my next billable hour coming from? I think a decision we made recently that was not a good decision was to try to outsource some of our marketing for purposes of increasing the volume of clients that were coming in that I wasn't just generating myself or through my own efforts. And so we brought in an outsourced marketing firm. I'm not going to say who it was, but in my mind, while it may have worked for some of their clients, it did not work for us, because we're a very niche practice, or niche practice, as they say.
Yeah.
We have entrepreneurs who are focused on growing their business. We do estate planning for a lot of different people, not just entrepreneurs, for everyone. But our focus as a business in terms of who we're best able to help are these entrepreneurs, founders, CXOs, people who are very focused on their business and in their business and want to grow it. And so we use our skill set to pivot to either help them with their estate planning or their business planning or their tax planning. We'll combine it all at once, but we help utilize those skills to help everyone who needs those services. So it might be just somebody who's just starting up a business for the very first time. How do you form a business? What should I be on the lookout for? I had a guy who was in the Secret Service call me up. He's leaving. He's been in the Secret Service for 30 years, and now he wants to set up a security company. And we talked about it. We helped focus him on exactly what he needs to do, as opposed to him just saying, just go to LegalZoom and set it up on, or go online and set it up online.
Yeah.
We talked about taxes. We talked about licenses. We talked about location. We talked, all these different things.
Yeah, it's good.
And I think he really appreciated it. And it was, his comment was, man, this was totally worth the investment of a few dollars to do.
Yeah.
To have you advise us on that kind of stuff. So bad decision, outsourcing the marketing, we're bringing it all in-house, and it's working really, really, really well.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said to that. I think there's a lot of marketing agencies, unfortunately, that are just, ho-humming along, and it doesn't really get great results. In fact, I just recently finished a marketing book by Dan Kennedy. Great marketing mind, almost one of the originals. But he said a lot of times it's not that you want to bring it in house just to I can do it better. It's just that a lot of times, you just know your stuff better. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
This is a guy from a guy who runs an agency.
Yeah, you try to fit the square peg into a round hole, it's never going to fit, and that's one of the issues. But there was a book, I can't remember, the guy's name is Marcus something, but he wrote They Ask You Answer. Great book. And it's all about social media, online marketing, and we've used his strategy in the book to really reformulate all of our content I have decades worth of content that is so deep, and we have so much stuff. So we're repurposing it today. Some of it's still valid 20 years later.
Oh, yeah.
Where we repurpose it in the form of a question and an answer, because people go on the internet asking questions, and they want answers to their questions. That's how I search on the internet. It's like, if I go on Google or wherever, I'm typing in a question. How do I do this?
Right.
And then up pops a YouTube video or something like that, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think there are things that we constantly are learning how to do things better and how to deliver that content and then bring it to the masses in a way that it attracts more people to us as a business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we could spend a whole podcast on what you're doing there, but I think it's a good to recognize for the listener that, like, hey, first off, you have to have a marketing effort. There's plenty of people listening right now that are just letting business come to them, which is great. That's a great way to start. You got business coming to you. But eventually, in order to have anything sustainable, something beyond you, again, going back to that thinking beyond yourself, you have to have a marketing system and then a
Right.
team that obviously facilitates it. So I got one last question here for you, Wayne, because we've just gone into such really high quality stuff. I want to switch the gamut on you here. But my last question is, if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger Wayne's ear, what would you tell that guy?
Wow. Well, first thing I'd say is learn how to be patient.
Mm,
Be more patient, number one. Number two, listen more generously and carefully to the people that you're talking with instead of thinking that you know the answer before they give it. And so let them tell you about themselves.
Yeah.
Let them tell you about their problems and really listen and ask more questions and more questions and more questions in terms of what I do for a living. If I had to do it over again, I think I'd be retired by now probably, but I would have approached things less headstrong, more patient, and with a much more generous listening mind.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I love that little deposit of information. Actually, what I heard as you were saying all that was that I heard the older attorney talking to the younger, like, well, we all know the younger attorney. He's sharp, he's arrogant, he doesn't listen to anybody, and so he's got shiny shoes and a fast car. It's like, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the transparent guy that's going to want to help me, like, genuinely. And so in order to actually want to help me, like all the things that you've said here today, you got to ask great questions. You got to listen. You got to actually care about the human on the other side. Man, such great advice. Wayne, how can we find you? If someone's listening right now and they want to connect with you as an entrepreneur, just follow your content. Or if they're like, no, I got to set up a trust, I got to start thinking about this business planning, this estate planning stuff, how can they find you?
Three ways. One is to go to zelllaw.com for the legal services, ZELLLAW.com. For the book, Your Multimillion-Dollar Exit and Entrepreneur's Business Succession Planner, you can go to waynezell.com. That's my author website, and order it there or on Amazon, of course. And then lastly, for exit planning, to receive the benefit of my knowledge and my expertise as an exit planner, you can go to aspiretoexit.com, which is a new website, and we offer services through that as well.
Love it. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes, make it super easy for listeners to connect with you, whether it be the book, an introductory stage, or go all in. I'm like the all in type. So like if I connected with you here today, I'm going all in. I'm hiring you for all the stuff. That's just my style. But I've already told you that personally, we're going to get to know each other because I need guys like you in my life for sure. So I appreciate you being here. I look forward to the relationship that we will build, and I hope that the listeners choose to connect with you as well. But thank you for being here. Blessings to your family and all the things that you are touching here in 2023.
Chaz, thank you so much for having me as a guest on the show, and I really appreciate being here today.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.